All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. We are now a month away from the draft. Actually, less than a month away from the draft. We're 4 weeks. Um, Bob is still out there on the water. He will be back next week, talking about some draft prospects. But in the meantime, I've got my son once again on the show. Well, he just disappeared. I don't know what the heck happened.
Oh,
but
okay.
I
My
lost you.
bad.
Can't. There we go. All right. Um, he spends a lot of his time, probably too much of his time, studying film, going through mock drafts, watching draft shows from various colleges and pro scouts and things. So he's got a pretty good handle on what's going on in the NFL draft. Um, so tonight's show, I want to focus more on the back half of the draft because that's really where the draft is made. You know, we all know, okay, the first three rounds, we're looking at guys like Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Delane from LSU, Will Mainfall, those kind of guys. And then we're looking at Chris Bell at wide receiver or, just Cornell Tate slide, those kind of guys. I mean, we get all that. But the key to great drafting is the back half, the last, say, round, day three, rounds 4 through 7. The Saints have 2/4, a fifth, and a sixth, right?
Yeah, they have 2 4s, 2 5ths, and a sixth.
2/5. Okay. Yeah, that's true. 130, 136. I've done so many
Yeah.
mock drafts and where I've traded for extra picks that I forget how many we actually have. I know we don't have a
Yeah.
seventh round pick.
Yeah, which, I mean,
Well, and that's the thing. So when we're looking at the draft and the reason why the Saints have struggled until last year in the draft is not only have they missed on first round picks, Peyton Turner, Trevor Penning, some will say Marcus Davenport. I don't agree with that, but not like those other guys. And then Isaiah Found. Those kind of guys you miss, that hurts a lot. But what hurts even more is when you don't get a lot of quality players in rounds 4 through 7. Because those guys end up making up your special teams, end up making up a lot of your core backups. So when your players get hurt, those are the guys who are stepping up. And then we can look at guys like Nick Salvadori, Am I saying that right? Okay.
you are.
Yeah, you look at a guy like him, that was a 4th round pick. He should, if he's not starting, he should be the kind of guy that is coming in and playing a lot of snaps because he's the kind of guy that should be either a top rotational player or at least a guy that you're going to is your 5th offensive lineman, and he can't even stay healthy. So when those kind of players are bust, that hurts almost more than it does when you miss in the first and second round. I mean, does that make sense to you? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need pretty much every one of your picks. Like, you're hoping that your first round pick is your franchise guy. You're hoping your second and
Yes.
third round picks are guys that are like good contributing stars, not star players, not like big franchise guys, but guys that you're like, okay, we have a plug in at starter. We can have a guy that can give us good starting minutes, maybe earn a second contract. Then you look at 4th through 7th. This is where you got to build your special teams and your depth. And I feel like
Exactly.
over the past few years, we really kind of neglected that because, I mean, you go back to 2021. I mean, you have Ian Book, you have, um, Kawan Baker, you drafted Landon Young. I think there was like one more player in between that. Just nothing. Then, 2022. I mean, yeah, you had DeMarco Jackson, and then you have Jordan Jackson. You had a couple other players, and then 2023. You mentioned Saldivari. There's also, I think there was also, you trade up for Hayner. You had all these
Hmm.
other moves, and A.T. Perry. If you can't get
Traquan
that
Smith, fourth round
yeah,
pick.
I'm sorry.
Traquan Smith, fourth round
Oh,
pick.
he was a third rounder.
Oh, a third round pick. Okay, I thought he
Yeah,
was
but
fourth.
still the point remains. It's like you at you know you overspend for depth players in free agency, or you hold on to these aging veterans that are just not good enough. And this is where you need those younger players to kind of step in and be like, okay, we'll take the reins from here. You'll be fine. We'll just go ahead and do what we need to do. And you know, this is where I mean, if the Saints really want to improve their special teams, which sounds like it's one of their key things that they want to do, which is improving that, you got to get the gunners. You got to get the guys who can cover those special teams.
Yeah, and Dan Hartman's song there, Jerry. From my senior year in high school when I graduated, Dan Hartman's "I Can Dream About You." And this goes off topic here, but since Jerry mentioned it, they have two videos of this song because this song came from a movie called Streets of Fire, and there's a band in the movie that lip syncs the song, but plays the song, and it's a Temptations looking band, except they do the moonwalk and stuff like that. But Dan Hartman has that voice that people thought he was black, and so he had to make a second video because the official video was from the movie Streets of Fire, so it was filled with footage from the movie, including the band singing that song. So Dan Hartman makes another video, so he's like, "Hey man, I'm not black. I'm a white guy," So it's actually kind of funny. So yeah,
I bet.
But yeah, it's it is really important that you hit on some of those players. I don't mean to be impact starters. I mean, they can't be. You can't sit there and say, "Well, we got to have a Marques Colston." Marques Colston isn't a unicorn. That's a once in a lifetime kind of thing that happens.
Yeah.
But what you do need to have is you need to have guys who can contribute, guys that can step in and be rotational guys when you need them to play. And that was something that the Saints have not had in a long time. A guy like I just drew a blank on their names. I'm going way back in time. But, Jim Wilkes was a 12th round pick, and he ended up being a solid starter. Guys that just come in and contribute on special teams, have an impact on your team, useful players. And I think too often, especially in the fourth round, those are where you really need that kind of help. And with you having two fourth round picks at the end of the round, you kind of, once you get past your top three or top four, offensive line, defensive end, edge rusher, receiver, defensive tackle. And this is when you start looking for, okay, can I get a second receiver here? Can I get a running back here? Can I get an interior offensive lineman like a center / guard who can kind of take the role of backing up McCoy and possibly even turning into a starter, because it's not a question anymore of if McCoy gets hurt, it's when he gets hurt. I think that's kind of what you need to look for in this draft. So tonight's show is going to be talking about those kind of guys, and I got a few names. I think Matt has a few names, and we'll bring those guys up. Yeah, like Bob. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing. I'm seeing Anna's comments, like Bobby Caldwell, or probably the most famous. There's an actual reaction video where a group of students from UL Lafayette are watching Michael McDonald's. I keep forgetting. Well, first they think it's Regulator by Warren G, because they hear that song, the beginning, and then they realize it's a real song. And then when Michael McDonald starts singing, they go, "Wait a minute! I thought this was some kind of Marvin Gaye looking dude." Like this is a white dude. So yeah, there's quite a few of them that sound like that. they used to call that blue-eyed soul. And I miss Sean when we have these conversations because Sean and I could go on forever about this stuff.
Yeah, very much.
Okay. Before we get jumping into that, though, I wanted to bring up a couple things. Kellen Moore, it's the owners' meeting this week. Kellen Moore met with the media. He addressed the Alvin Kamara situation, and it's a situation because it's a situation of silence. Kamara's not talking about anything. The Saints aren't talking about anything as in terms of long-term plans with Alvin Kamara. And Kellen Moore gave kind of what I felt like is a non-committal answer. He was saying things like, well, Alvin Kamara is on this team. He didn't say right now, just he's like, he's on this team. Okay. And he further pushed it by saying, no, we have visions of what we're going to do with Kamara. And I'm sorry, I'm still calling him HN, but he's ATN to me. With ATN and Kamara, we have ideas that we're going to do and these things like that. But they also restructured his contract in a way that if he decides to retire, the Saints can get back some money, and it's kind of his golden parachute. Yeah. And Alvin isn't like squashing any rumors, nor is he really feeding any rumors by just not saying or doing anything, which is not unusual for Alvin Kamara either. But how do you take this situation with Alvin? I mean, is it just a case of, look, we're making something out of nothing? Kamara's going to be part of this team. Are they going to trade Kamara? Are they kind of is the front office kind of pushing him out the door? Would like to move on from him. How do you read this?
I read it as we're waiting. It's a wait and see game because I feel like they have some names that they want to get in the building. Like maybe there's some guys they have on the team. They're like in the draft, and they're like, listen, we're hoping to get this guy and this guy in, but we're not sure. So, Alvin, we want you to stay here for now, and we're just going to wait and see. And I think that's what Alvin's waiting for. He's waiting to see, okay, are they bringing in another player that's going to push me out of the building? Because they're not going to.
So, in other words, another player in the draft, maybe?
Yeah, probably in the draft. I think there's a couple names they're looking at later, and probably someone for special teams, probably someone who can help kind of alleviate some of what what ETN does. I mean, maybe it's probably another inside runner who's faster. Maybe it's a different type of catching back. I think it's just let's be patient about it, because if they get rid of Kamara now and they don't get another running back in, well, then they're back to. It feels like they're just back at square one. Before they even sign Achan.
Well, and that's my issue. Okay, so you don't have a back that can kind of do what Kamara does, because if you're going to try and put it all on ATN or HN, that's not a good plan. And yes, I know you drafted Devin Neal in the 6th round last year. I know Estime showed you a little bit as an inside back. And they would like to get, I think, an inside runner with some speed, to kind of be the inside-outside guy with ATN. And I also feel like they're hedging their bets too. That okay, if the draft doesn't fall the way we want it to fall, I have Alvin Kamara to fall back on. So it is kind of a wait and see kind of deal, and that's going to lead to the conversation I want to talk about first about running backs in this draft, say day 3 guys, and anybody that can kind of fill that role as the inside runner, maybe an Alvin Kamara pass catcher too. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is Cam Jordan. It's now been 3 weeks, or maybe longer. No, I think it's been 3 weeks.
Close to that.
Since the beginning of free agency.
Yeah.
The only team that's shown any kind of interest is Kansas City Chiefs, and their attitude kind of is, we'll take you for a year. We'll give you a 1-year deal, and you're going to be a rotational guy. maybe a third down pass rushing specialist, but you're not going to be an everyday back. Everyday end, every heavy duty starting end. So is this the same with Alvin Kamara, that we have in a kind of a wait and see? Let's see what kind of players we can draft and whether or not we're going to try and make an effort to keep Kamara. Keep Cam Jordan.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's just, well, we got to wait and see, what happens. Are we going to get another pass rusher? Because I know the Saints, they want to bring in another veteran defensive lineman. They're looking at veterans. They called a couple of teams, and they're just waiting. And it's going to be a waiting game.
So who are these guys they were looking at?
They were looking at Daron Payne, but they couldn't agree on a contract extension, because I think Payne wants what John Franklin Myers got from the Titans. He wants all that money, and I feel like the Saints were a little hesitant.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's a little ridiculous.
The other guy they were looking at is Kayvon Thibodeau, and I think that's probably a draft day trade where after the first 3 rounds, let's say they don't get an edge rusher. They don't land the guy they want. And I could see him calling the Giants and say, "Hey, listen, we'll ship you a 4th and maybe and probably another pick in 2020 in a 2027, probably 3rd rounder. We'll take Thibodeau off your hands, and you get these picks." And I feel like the Giants are kind of 50-50, because they're probably not looking to extend him, so you get something out of it. But on the other hand, I think they probably want more. They want something. They want a little more from him.
It's funny too, because the reason why they're looking at shipping out Thibodeau is because they've got to make room for Andre Carter to get some snaps. Abdul Carter. Sorry, Andre Carter was a different back. Abdul Carter. Yeah. I mean, you spent a 1st round pick on Abdul Carter. You need to have him as your starter. And I think that in the position the Giants are in, it's a lot better to go ahead and put him in there and see what he's going to do with a full new coaching staff, full year as a starter, and not try and sit here and split time with Thibodeau or rotate him in, ease him in slowly. It's time to see if this kid can play up to his draft status. So I understand that, and I honestly would not be upset with Thibodeau coming to the Saints. I would be disappointed that Thibodeau comes in at the cost of Cam Jordan, though. I'd like Cam to come back on a 1-year deal that's inexpensive, because I want him to get the record and then retire as a Saint. I do not want him finishes his career like so many former Saints have done, finish their career somewhere else for a year where they're a shell of themselves, and it's just they're there just for the paycheck. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at draft picks late, starting round 4 on down. Yeah. Assume, for example, that the Saints have done the Caleb Downs, maybe Lee Hunter in the 2nd round, or Chris Bell in the 2nd round, and defensive tackle in the 3rd round, because the defensive tackle is really, really thin. Okay, so, or a cornerback. They did a cornerback. What kind of running back are you looking at then in the 4th round? Who would be a good 4th round running back? And then maybe a guy that will fall past the 4th round, and is somebody out there that, say, 5th on down to an undrafted free agent, might be a good fit for the Saints.
Yeah. So in the 4th round, definitely, and he's kind of all over the place in terms of where his draft position is, and that's Jonah Coleman from Washington. I know in one book he's a 3rd rounder, in another book he's like a 5th rounder or a 6th rounder. He's kind of all over the place, but the Saints already had him for a workout, and he's small, compact, but a pretty good inside runner. I think he's very underrated. He doesn't really have that breakneck speed, but he can definitely, you know, he's great at running up those guts. He's great at being that inside zone runner that can just punish people. I think he has a very solid build. He has 25 touchdowns over the last 2 years, almost 1,800 yards rushing. I really like this kid. I think he's very solid. Another running back I keep an eye on is Emmett Johnson from Nebraska. Very shifty, very kind of quick-footed. You can catch passes out of the backfield. He just makes it really, really difficult to tackle. That's why I think it's is so underrated about him. He's just, I mean, you look at guys that are like, well, who's your Alvin Kamara replacement? Well, you look for the guy that's just tough to tackle, and you don't get a guy that's tougher to tackle than Emma Johnson.
Yeah, it's funny, because when the draft first started, all the talk about the draft first started. I mean, everybody's Mike Washington Jr., Mike Washington from Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And, the bad part about Mike Washington is he has everything that you want. He's bigger than those other two guys you're talking about, both running backs that you mentioned, 5'9" to 5'11". Okay, Jonah Coleman's 5'9". The kid from Nebraska is 5'11". Okay, Mike Washington 6'2", 228, built like a brick house. Can catch the ball, can pass block, can run, great speed, but ball security. He puts the ball on the ground a lot. And that's one of the reasons why he isn't a first or second round guy. He's a much later draft pick because you don't trust him to hold on to the football. He runs very upright too. And I'm looking at a 1985 game, Saints-Rams, right now as we're talking. And, it's like Eric Dickerson. Eric Dickerson runs very upright or ran very upright. So he leaves the ball exposed a lot. And that's part of the reason why the ball gets put on the ground. So a couple of guys I was looking at, I've been telling you about him since, we started doing these mock drafts. Nick Singleton from Penn State. Projected to go to third or fourth round. His 2024 tape looks better than his 2025 tape. But, I mean, he's 6 foot, 224, got breakaway speed, a powerful, compact runner, soft hands. But he's
he very underrated in pass blocking too. He's got that frame to just absorb those linebackers. There's just times where he's saving his quarterback's life.
Yeah, but the problem that happened for him was here they are in the college playoff system in 2024. Last year, the team kind of fell apart. It's the same reason why Drew Allar went from a possible first-round pick in 2024 to maybe an undrafted free agent this year because of the injuries. The team didn't do as well. He regressed as a player, and they fired their head coach. So I think that affected the whole offense and all their offensive production. So Nick Singleton could be a guy that falls in the draft and is maybe available on day 3. Now I'm thinking early day 3, but he is a guy that could be possibly out there. I don't think it's within the realm of impossibility that the Saints try and trade up early for a 4th round pick if they see a guy like him still sitting there day 3. Another guy, see if I can find him real quick. Where is he? There he is. CJ Donaldson from Ohio State. Another tall runner, another guy who can pass block. Has got great size, 6'2", 232, a tough physical inside runner. He doesn't get low enough, but he is a big runner. You're looking for an inside runner. You're not looking for a home run hitter. You're looking for a guy who complements ATN or Kamara, Just doing the inside zone runs that we saw Estime doing at the end of last year. I mean, really, if you watch how this offense evolved, as when Rattler was playing and Kamara was out there versus once Shuck got out there, and then they started using Estime and Neal more, there was much more the inside run effectiveness so they can then go outside. So, I mean, that's just my attitude with these running backs. I'm looking for an inside runner to make the outside running game more effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, you just need someone that can run up the gut because I think Achan can definitely run up the gut, but you don't want him to be the only guy. You want someone with a little more speed, a little more juice when he runs.
I can't tell you how many times I said last year, hey, diddle, Zalvin Kamara up the middle. And that's not what Kamara's good at. Which is kind of why a lot of people feel like, they're kind of pushing Alvin Kamara out the door. They want a guy who can go up the middle or between the center and the guard and get 4 or 5 yards a carry and make it second and short instead of ending up third and long and having Shuck have to try and convert a long pass to make it work. Okay, we'll mention edge rushers now too. Let's say, for the sake of argument, I don't really want to wait this long, but let's say we're now going to deal with an edge rusher late in the draft. 4th round, maybe late 3rd. Well, no, not late 3rd. Let's say 4th round.
Yeah.
What kind of edge rushers do you see available in the 4th round?
Well, around the 4th round is where you either get in rotational rushers or the really raw prospects. One guy I'm looking at is one of the Michigan pass rushers, Derek Moore. I think he's very solid and underrated. Solid build, little on the older side, and I think he does need to work a little bit on his on the run defense, but I think he's still a very good pass rusher. Like, I think he has good explosiveness, and he can definitely turn a lot of these sacks into pressures. I think he's a very solid player.
There's a couple guys out there from big name programs, Caden Curry, Ohio State, and Anthony Lucas from USC, who pop up a lot late in the draft. And this is where you run into problems when you start looking at guys late in the draft, because there's always something wrong with them. Okay. Malachi Lawrence is going in day 2. He won't go any later than day 2. So, that guy, especially, it's much in demand as pass rushers are. That's why I'm saying you really shouldn't wait to day 4, but sometimes that's just the way it unfolds. But, when you're looking at a guy like Anthony Lucas on tape, it looks like he's your guy, but he's got all the numbers, but he just has something wrong with him. I don't know what it is. It's like he cannot. He just doesn't have it put together, and it may be coaching. It may be coaching at USC. That's just he's got all the measurables, he's got all the skills, but it's just not coming together. So you're looking at a guy like him maybe as a developmental guy that let me see what I can do with him. Let me see if I can make him a good rusher. Whereas Caden Curry, that guy, he's got the toughness, he's got the aggressiveness. It's just some physical limitations he's got. He's not the speedy, bendy edge rusher. He's just a guy who just fights his ass off to make a play. And unfortunately, they've had guys like that before. You really need a talented guy now. So, I mean, it's basically you're bringing a Caden Curry in to be kind of I don't know, another Carl Granderson, which isn't a bad player, but he's just not going to get to the next level. You need somebody who's already on the next level.
If you want to get a raw pass rusher, maybe you can get LSU's Patrick Payton.
I thought about that, and some people have asked me about what the linebacker
Harold Perkins.
Harold Perkins. Yes, maybe use him as a pass rusher. I think Harold Perkins' problem is he is another Zach Bond to an extent as an edge rusher. You really need to make him a linebacker, a weak side linebacker, who's just going to, you're going to turn him loose, blitz him, that kind of stuff. So Hemisphere is asking if Love is there at 8, will the Saints pick him? If Love is there at 8, which is highly possible.
I'm seeing what's your offer.
Yes, I'm probably looking to trade down. And actually, I've kind of used that in these mocks that I've done, that rather than take Love, I try and get some extra picks. You know me, I love getting picks in the second and third round. Miami, at least according to Nick Underhill's New Orleans football mock draft setup, the number 8 pick is worth 237 points. I can get Miami's 11th pick, their 43rd pick in the second round, and if I was really being greedy to get almost equal point value, I can get their lower third round pick, which I think is number 82 or 87, something like that. So I'm getting 3 picks essentially for 1. That's when I'm like, I think I'm gonna make that trade, and I'm willing to let Love go to Miami, or if Miami wants to, because Fano, the offensive tackle, is always there, and they need him. The Dolphins need him. I'm always willing to let the Dolphins trade up to get in that position to take one of those 2 guys. I just drop down to 11, and I can take Delane, who's probably still there. Maybe if Sonny Styles slides, he may slide that far, but I got a couple of options there, that I don't have rather than take Love. Love is a nice piece, but you don't pay ATN that kind of money if you're going to commit to Love. You maybe get another guy in there, assuming you're going to replace him with Love eventually. Does that make sense? I know I keep asking that question.
Yeah, but I know. And, one team I often trade with is with, for Jeremiah Love, it's Minnesota, because I think they might get a really good running back, because they're going to look at their quarterback and they'll think, we got Kyler Murray going against McCarthy. We're a couple players away. Let's go pay for this exciting young running back in Jeremiah Love. And every time I do, I get their first, second, late third, and next year's first. And I feel like if you want a bigger pick haul, you want more top 100 picks, you try and get what Minnesota's offering.
Yeah, my problem with that trade is I'm going pretty far down. I'm not going down. Where's Minnesota picking?
18th.
Yeah. I'm dropping down 10 spots. So that's just really tough to trade down that far. That's why, about the lowest I'd like to go is the Jets at 16. I know it doesn't sound like much, but I feel like a lot of the best players that I'm looking at are kind of dropping off there. So now I'm looking at taking somebody early because I'm in that funky spot.
Now, but if you do get their second round pick, you do get 3. Now you get 3 top 50 picks.
Yeah.
So you're able to build more depth.
Yeah. No, I get it, and I totally agree.
Yeah. So yeah. It's a double-edged sword, because you're down 10 spots, and now you're a lot more limited, and maybe you could reach for one of those guys. Like, let's say you do really want Chris Bell, or you want Peter Woods. Well, at 8 you wouldn't consider, but now 18 you're like, you start weighing your options.
And actually, that's not a bad idea. As far as making a trade like that and going defensive tackle in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're kind of going off topic here because I really wanted to focus on the back end of the draft. But let's say you're going to take a Peter Woods, you're going to take someone like that in the middle of the draft. You look at the depth of the Saints' offensive line, defensive line. At defensive tackle, it's not very good. You got John Ridgway, and I think Nathan Shepard is still here.
Yeah, Nathan Shepard's still there. You got a lot of just bodies, and I feel like they want to add more. They definitely want to add more players.
Well, you need somebody who can definitely tie up two guys. You need a big, I don't know where if Calvin's going to jump in, but Calvin's guy. You need somebody who's going to jump in there and be that two gap space eater that ties up 2 and 3 blockers to free up the edge rushers, free up Brian Brzee. You just need somebody in there who's just going to eat up the defense. I mean, the offensive line, the middle of that offensive line, and just be like that Vita Vea. You're the I-beam. You're not going to be able to run the football on us up the middle. And so I'm all for that. I just feel like you're taking a risk because if you drop that far, is Peter Woods a grand slam first-round pick, first off, and versus the guys you have at the top of the draft?
And they want a zero tech or at least someone to play.
Yeah,
maybe
that's what we're talking
about. Because they looked at you notice Gottschalk started losing snaps towards the end of the season. It's almost like they were just disappointed in his play, and they like Shepard, but they want someone to rotate. And I read Nick Underhill's article recently and talked about Brian Brzee, and they said, a lot of people thought they'd be disappointed because he went from 7.5 to 2.5 sacks, but it sounds like they like that he became more of an all-around productive player. He wasn't just pressuring the quarterback; he was also doing better against the run.
Yes, and a lot of people kind of dislike him because he's not somebody coming in there making a lot of sacks on the quarterback. He's an almost player right now as far as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
But I watch him a lot when we're at the games, and he does draw a lot of attention by offensive linemen. A lot more attention than the one-on-one blocking that Shepard's getting, that Godshaw was getting, those kind of things. Now, William Brockton was drafted last year. He got hurt, so he is, he's kind of an unknown at this point. But I still think they need more talent right there, the zero technique, or a nose guard kind of guy that just ties up blockers. So let's say then the Saints aren't able to get one in the first 2 days of the draft. Now looking at day 3. Who are the day 3 kind of nose tackles? And there's a couple guys that you and I have liked a lot.
Yeah.
Who are some of the ones that you're thinking of?
Oh, definitely one of them is Texas A&M's Albert Regis. Very much just a nose guard. He's very kind of small, but very much very good run stuffer. I mean, you watch A&M's defense, it always felt like it just got incredibly, incredibly difficult to run on him or just move the ball on him. I would love to have some of that talent. I mean, I do like Dante Corleone from Cincinnati, and those are just a couple nose guards. I like Tim Keenan from Alabama. I think he's a very solid guy. I think Dale Jackson's probably a 3rd rounder. Maybe you can alternate between being a nose guard and a 3 tech because he's got the length. He's got pretty good athleticism. But those are definitely some of the nose guards I was looking at: Keenan, Corleone, and Albert Regis.
And one of the reasons why Keenan is not Keenan, but Corleone and the guy you mentioned, Regis, are both kind of low. Day 3 kind of guys is their height. They're 6'1". They're not 6'4", 6'5", which is what a lot of them. One of the guys I like is on the opposite end of the spectrum. Xavier Harris. He's 6'7", 6'8". They got him 6'8" in this book, but 6'7", 330. From Ole Miss. He's a big dude with long arms, very disruptive. You know when he's out there. The problem is Ole Miss rotated him a lot.
Yeah.
So, there's concerns that he has, conditioning problems, durability problems. Also, somebody that tall has a hard time getting down that low. Um, Jumpy Gathers was kind of tall with long arms like that, and he was very effective as a defensive tackle, defensive lineman in a 3-4 scheme.
Yeah. I just love this first sentence from Athlon that when they said about Albert Regis says, "Good luck trying to push this guy around in the run game." I'll take that. If
Yeah,
they, if he can, because they do call him a classic space eater who stuffs around early downs. You need that. I mean, if you can take away the interior runs, it makes life easier for your.
yeah, and a lot of these guys get dinged too, not only for height but also for the lack of a pass rush. They call it,
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
me, you can kind of scheme a pass rush. My thing with, especially with mobile quarterbacks, I want somebody who's going to make sure the back door doesn't open up.
Hmm.
Stays in their lane, ties up blockers, keeps things in front of them, so that when the quarterback tries to step up or escape from the edge rushers, there's no huge gap where they lost containment, and
Hmm.
the quarterback now can run free because everybody else is chasing receivers downfield. Um, why is Demonte Capehart rated so lowly?
Yeah, I think Capehart because he's not a nose guard. He's more of a three tech, and he's just a rotational player. Like he can play the run very well, and that's about it.
Uh,
It's just you'll be lucky to get half a sack out of him. Like he has no real pass rush upside. You look. They show his stats. Gets a sack, 2 straight years with no sack, then a sack, then a year with no sack, and then he gets one sack. It just feels like he has no real pass rush ability, not just
yeah,
upside, just no real ability. Like it just feels like it's generic. He's just relying on power. It just feels like he's not really putting in that effort to really exploit. You talk about Xavier Harris. He's a guy that has, pass rush plan. Zane Duran from Penn State has a pass rush plan.
hmm
Grayson Halton, who's getting a lot of hype. Landon Robinson from Navy. Like those are pass rushers. But then you're just watching DeMonte Capar. It's like, okay, we'll get this. He can play the run, but if he doesn't do the run well, then all he is just a waste of space.
yeah. I kind of feel that way too, a little bit about him. I think Capehart, he's just not a space eating defensive tackle. He is a run stopping defensive tackle in a 4-man front, but he's not going to be somebody who pushes the pocket. He's going to be somebody actually who gets handled and stood up at the line of scrimmage a lot of times, especially on a passing down. Um, okay, so how about cornerbacks? Because we talk a lot about cornerbacks, the need to replace a cornerback. If we get a
Hmm.
cornerback comes to the Saints in the draft, are you looking at somebody who's a slot guy, or are you looking at somebody who is more of a um, outside guy, and maybe you move somebody else to slot?
So if we draft a corner, I want some. If it's more in the early rounds, I want someone who's more of a slot guy, someone who can kind of line up inside. Recently Colton Hood, who's overcoming a torn ACL. He ran a 40 recently. No, it wasn't Colton. It was Jermon McCoy. Jermon McCoy has been recovered from the ACL. Didn't play at all last year. Well, he ran a 40. According to scouts, he ran a 4.38, which is very, very good if you're a player coming back from an ACL injury. You know, if you got that great speed, I'll take that. And I think, but I feel like Delane's a little bit of a better fit because he is more of a zone corner, and that's what we mostly play is zone. But if we're looking later, I want more of a slot corner, just someone who can kind of play inside. If we get an outside corner, you get an outside corner. I'm not gonna complain about, but I do like a slot corner there. I know. One name that's been flown around to the Saints is Traden Stukes from Arizona. He's very much a slot only kind of guy. Nice speed, good size. But if we go outside, my favorite player in the later rounds is Tasario Davis from Washington. Big corner, very much a sticky kind of guy. I really really enjoy him. I think he had a lot better tape when he was at Arizona. Like that, he was a guy that was projected to be a top 50 pick, and he chose to stay another year because of injury. And he's now projected going in the fourth round.
Yeah, it's funny. For a long time, it was always the Saints play a lot of press man coverage, and they were getting a lot of zone kind of cornerbacks. Now it looks like the colleges are turning out a lot more press man coverage corners, and the Saints are running a zone defense now. So that brings up guys like Keontae Scott, Will Lee. Those are guys that probably could do well in a zone kind of defense like the Saints want to run. But yeah, I keep finding myself, because of so many years of Dennis Allen's defense, drifting to the Ohio State cornerback, Davison Igbigson, the guy you mentioned, Tacario Davis,
I wouldn't mind also
Thaddeus Dixon.
Prize stock.
Hyphens five stock.
I think it's Ephesians, like in the the Bible.
That makes sense. Ephesians. That's what it looks like too. Prize stock.
Yeah, kind of like like reading a passage from the Bible.
Yeah, but I mean, all these guys are 6'1" to 6'4". They're big, long, lanky guys, and not. They're under 200 pounds. You get to the 200-pound guy at the higher rates. You get to like the Ohio State cornerback. He's I'm sorry, he is 195 too. Sorry. Who was it? Tacario Davis. He's 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Dalen Everett, another press corner from Georgia, 190, 6'1". But his problem is he is a pure press corner. He's not a very good zone corner. So, where are you going to put these guys at? Stukes, I can see that. Stukes is a fourth rounder, 6'2", 200 pounds, aggressive cover man with big playability. He loves to go after the ball. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they go and take a corner in the first round, like some people thought last week, a couple weeks ago. If you were to go and get the LSU corner, Delane, in the first round, Delane's got to go to the outside, and then you're talking about pushing somebody down into the slot, and most people seem to think it's going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry to get pushed down into the slot. Okay. Anna wants to know why did they let Alontae Taylor go?
I think it's just because they didn't feel like he was worth that $20 million, because Titans paid the market price for him. Basically, they gave him $20 million, and you're just like, I think the Saints had a price in mind. It was probably about 10, and he wanted the money, and they
held firm in their price. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way. I think they just. I think Alontae Taylor really should be moved to safety. I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's a very good cover guy. I think he's a hitter. I think he's a blitzer, and that's going to be hard to replace. But I do think that they wanted an upgrade as far as coverage too. Somebody who's a better cover guy. So I think that's why he kind of went off to the side there. But it's now become a priority.
Yeah.
but you kind of have an idea what you want to do. Do I want to go and replace starting outside corner and use the guys I've got right now and move them around to fill the nickel spot? Or do I want to get a pure slot corner with some outside ability later on in the draft? I think they're playing with both those routes right now.
Yeah. And I think, they're kind of looking at
Yeah, I agree with that, Calvin.
they're looking at corner. I know they say, oh, we're looking at guys in the building. Well, they don't want to tip their hand and being like, yeah, that's what we're looking at corner. They want to keep everything close to the chest and just reveal what they want to reveal later. But
yeah,
I think corner is definitely high up. They want to get that quote unquote star player for that secondary, and they're just keeping it close to the chest about who they want. I mean, you just need some sane sources to be willing to share information, and it really does sound like who they want is definitely Mansour Delane.
That'll be an interesting pick because in the 60-year history of the Saints, because it's their 60th season, or 60th years of existence this November 1st. The Saints have never drafted a player from LSU in the first round. It would be a first. It would be dramatic. I understand the pick, and honestly, when I do my mocks and I take him in the first round, I find good edge rushers and good defensive tackles later in the draft. That's why we've been having this conversation that we've been having all night tonight about late edge rushers, late defensive tackles. But it's tough for me to pull the trigger on that. I kind of want that sexy pick. And there's also a real fear that the Saints really, really want Chris Bell, the wide receiver. If Chris Bell goes where some people think he's going to go, and that's around pick 26 to pick 34, 35, you might have to trade up to get him. That's going to take away some of those high picks if you want to trade up to get him, especially if you want to get him in the first round, get that 5-year deal. That's tough. That's a tough pill for me to swallow right now, because right now I think I really want to let's get the impact players, and we need players. We don't need one player. If you don't get Chris Bell, I've already said Surratt a few times. I've had people roll their eyes at me over him, but there are other players you can get later in the draft that are also impact receivers, higher than other than just targeting Chris Bell. I always get him in the second round in mocks, but that's not how the real world plays out.
Yeah.
And I agree, Calvin. You lose 10.5 sacks in your defense. You're losing if you don't bring back Cam Jordan, and you lost. You've already lost Alontae Taylor. That's more of an impact, than drafting a corner. You really need that edge rusher. I'd rather get the edge rusher. I'm even for Sonny Styles in the first round, because I think Sonny Styles kind of replaces Demario Davis and gives you a little more flexibility. You can kind of move him around as a chess piece everywhere. But you take the corner that early in the draft, it puts the pressure on you now. I need to go find that edge rusher, and I need that defensive tackle, because I don't have the depth at defensive tackle. I need that space eater. So those guys, and then I still want to get that top wide receiver. So, you've taken away one of your picks. Now you got two more left in the first 2 days of the draft. Where are those guys going to come from?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I would like to get an edge rusher early, but I think they're just looking at it and they're going, well, we got Granderson, and they just want to add they want to add a veteran. They're looking at the top 3 pass rushers and they're like, well, there's probably a possibility one will fall to us, but I don't think they're expecting well, I think they're looking at a corner going, well, we do need one more. And I think they're just more sold that the corners in this draft are the top corners are just better than the pass rushers are. I think that could be the case. I know a lot
Well,
of people disagree with that, but
it's
I feel
tough
like
for
that might be the
me.
case.
It's tough for me because
Hmm.
I'm looking at there's three guys in the top 10. One of those three guys are going to fall to us at 8. I can't
Yeah.
see a world where Bain, Styles, um, and Davis. I'm not even counting Reese because Reese is going second or third. But one of those three, Bain, Styles, or the kid from Texas Tech,
Bailey.
Bailey, sorry, are going to slide. One of them's going to be there at 8 because I think Jordan Love Jordan Love. I keep calling him
Jeremiah.
that. Jeremiah Love is going to go before 8. So one of those guys is going to be there. That offensive tackle from Indiana may go earlier. So someone's going to slide because of that. You've got 10 or more players that people have going in the top 8. And so there's other players that are going to fall. I can't imagine getting to the point where it's a bunch of guys the Saints don't want to pick. So that's why I look at Delane going, okay, Delane's my fallback option if I had the nightmare and all that's left are offensive players I don't want or players in positions I don't want, like an offensive tackle. I just don't see that happening. And so I'm looking at this going, okay, so if one of those guys falls, I'm not taking Delane there. I'm just not. If Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, or Bailey is there at 8, I'm sure as hell not taking a corner from LSU at 8.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I just can't, I don't understand that logic because he's not the 8th best player. He's like the 11th or 12th best player. Now, if I trade down and get extra picks, then I'm taking him. Yeah. But, that's two things you got to do. You got to trade down. And like I said, I love trading down with Miami because I get their 11th pick, their 42nd pick or 43rd pick. So I had back-to-back picks in the second round and maybe their low third round pick, the one near the bottom of the draft. Hell yeah. I've got now 3 picks in the top 100. I'm taking that and I can live with Delane because now I've got 2 in the second and 2 in the third. So I've got more options there, but not doing anything, not trading down. And then worst case scenario, you're trading back up to get back in the first round to get Chris Bell. No, I just can't do it. I can't do it.
I got you. I mean, especially on the when you got these edge rushers out there, and it's just like, hey, listen, you got to get the edge rusher first because you look at the top three things you need to have a successful team outside of a coach and general manager is
absolutely
quarterback, left tackle, and edge rusher. You need the quarterback. You got to protect the quarterback, and you got to go get the other team's quarterback.
Yeah,
and you need to have that other guy, and they just don't. And there's some guys that are interesting that you can probably get maybe in the second round, but I just really think they see corner and they're going, we need that one more guy. We need someone who's just a little bit special.
And I get that, if he could be the next, shutdown corner where he takes away one whole side of the field, I get all that. But in the perfect world, I'm doing that when I have extra picks in the first or the top 100. Gotcha. That's the only way I can do that.
All right.
And I agree, Calvin. If Love is there, I'm selling to the highest bidder. The problem is Kansas City's probably not going to try and jump over you to get it. They're counting on you not taking him. You're kind of selling him to Minnesota, like you said. A couple other players where you're the Jets, maybe. A team. Although the Jets don't really need a a running back. They just paid Breece Hall. They really need a quarterback. I made that trade before too. One of them, I did a wild draft where Ty Simpson was there at 42, and I traded into the Jets, and I got extra picks for him. So
that's good.
Yeah, you need, and I agree, Calvin. You need two edge rushers. You need two special edge rushers because that way you force the quarterback to run to one side or the other. Who you pick your poison, especially if you get the big fat nose tackle who's tying him up in the front, not letting him out the back door, and you got the two edge rushers coming in. That quarterback can't go anywhere. He's going to try and run backwards, which is what you want to have happen. And then it helps your cornerbacks. And that's why we talked about late round picks, because they're more developmental guys, but you get one of those guys and you can use them. You can get that guy in the 4th round or the 5th round, and they got some size to them. They got some developmental stuff, but they're special team / your nickel corner. Okay, so we've talked about everybody, almost every position, but interior offensive line. We didn't really talk about receivers, but there's a couple of receivers I know you like too. But let's talk about the interior offensive line first. What interior offensive lineman do you want, and what kind should the Saints be looking at? Are they looking at pure guards, pure centers, guard / centers, center / guards? What kind of names pop up to you?
To me, I'd rather get more of a pure center. I know flexibility is everything, but I'm looking more of a pure center. I love Jake Slaughter from Florida. I think he's a really good one. If somehow this guy falls, Sam Hecht, I doubt it, but I would love him. I would really like him. Sam Hecht from Kansas State. There's Logan Jones from Iowa.
That's my guy.
Yeah. One underrated player that I saw, he's more of a pure guard, though he has flexibility. It's Jalen Farmer. This is more of a name I saw that Matt Miller, he released a 7-round mock draft, and he listed the Saints drafting Jalen Farmer in the 4th round. Very athletic guard from Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's got all 3 of their players, all 3 of their offensive linemen in there. You got Brian Parker, who has tackle flexibility. You have, I know you're about to say his name, Yeager Burton who's more of a pure center, and Jalen Farmer. I think either one of those guys, you kick him inside, I think would definitely help. And lastly, I wouldn't mind Pat Coogan from Indiana. I think he's a very solid player at center.
Yeah, Logan Jones is probably the best center in the draft, and he's projected 3rd or 4th round because nobody just grabs pure centers. A guy late in the draft, and we're talking, we don't even have a 7th round pick. But a guy who's probably a late 6th, 7th round guy is Inez Cooper. He's not a center. He's a pure guard, but he's from Miami. So he is somebody worth looking at late in a game, late in the draft. He's got size, got some speed, but he's really, he's purely a guard. So I think there's some issues where he's, they don't know where he's going to go. I've got some draft magazines that have him going as high as the 3rd round. But it's mainly because he's just a one position guy. He's played right guard, I think, almost his entire career. I'm just double checking here as we look at it. Yeah, I think he's played right guard his entire career, but that's somebody to watch late in the draft. He's got a lot of power to him. He can move a little bit, so that's what the Saints like to do, pull their guards. So that's somebody worth watching. And then the Kentucky guy, Yeager Burton. I think you mentioned him, but he's a center, but he's played guard. So it's a position we have to look at because it's no longer a question of if McCoy gets hurt again, it's when he gets hurt again.
Yeah.
You've got to back that play up. You have to protect yourself because we don't want another 2024 season where you're putting everybody in the sun under center to try and just keep Shuck from getting killed. So yeah, I'm definitely looking for a guy who primarily plays center but can play some guard. That's why the kid from Iowa is on my dream board. If we can get him in the 4th round, and not many mocks have him going that far. He's usually gone by the end of the 3rd, but if he's available in the 4th round, I'd love it. Well, Max Unger was a veteran, so that helped out a lot. But yeah, you just need somebody that you can kind of groom to eventually take over for McCoy. So, receivers, and the last one we're going to talk about tonight. Everybody knows the top guys, but who can you look at late in the draft? Because we could possibly need at least 2 receivers. I've looked at receivers late in the draft as receivers / kick returners. Just speed guys, less than size guys. But there's a couple of size guys I like too. What receivers do you like?
In the later rounds, let's see.
Yeah.
I know there's definitely a couple names. I know Malachi Fields is definitely a popular name. I wouldn't mind him. Just need to double check. Give me a sec. I know Josh Cameron from Baylor. He's very much a guy that he's kind of built like a running back, and he does his damage after the catch. The problem is he needs to do better catching those passes. But he very much has that build. The Saints worked him out. I wouldn't mind Ted Hurst. He's a very popular player, but I think he's going to slide up into the 3rd round. There's Eric McAllister from TCU.
Eric McAllister,
and also
Eric
Bryce
McAllister's
Lance
one guy I brought up a few times. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's also Bryce Lance from North Dakota State, who's very much kind of a Christian Watson clone. And there's also I think it's either Reggie Virgil or Caleb Douglas, one of those Texas Tech receivers. Very underrated guys. Just bad quarterback play just kind of sunk them.
Yeah.
But don't tell Chris Sims that. He'll tell you Brent Morin's the 3rd best quarterback in this class.
So I've got a couple of names. Since you already mentioned him, I'm not going to bring up Eric McAllister again. He's kind of a he's like he just reminds me of like a poor man's. I'm trying to think of who the comparison I had before. I had it just a second ago, but he's really just he's a slow, lanky kind of guy, kind of like I hate mentioning Traquan Smith, but you're talking about like a Traquan Smith kind of receiver.
He kind of reminds me more of Robert Meacham, where he likes attacking people deep. He likes attacking people vertically and knows how to. Yeah.
So I'm going to mention this guy from Miami, CJ Daniels. He's got some size to him. He's not a burner. He's not a guy who takes off the top of a defense, but he's really a slot receiver. And I think he is good insurance in case Jalen Polk really can't play, and kind of a guy who can kind of learn behind Vele and do some help with Vele. And if I'm looking for pure speed guys, I'm going to regret saying this kid's name, but his name constantly comes up. He's really small, but he's a burner. And he's going to be a special teams guy. And to me, he reminds me of Deontay Harris, Eric Rivers from Georgia Tech. I mean, short, very short. I would not use him on reverses or anything like that or jet sweeps in your offense. But he is a guy that I would probably put out there as a kickoff returner, and can probably break a couple of kicks for big plays.
Yeah. One underrated guy I really like is Eli Heidenreich from Navy. Also, wouldn't mind if we can get him undrafted, if possible. Chase Roberts from BYU.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that's that's when you start looking for special teams guys. Oh, look, we didn't even talk about the tight end position.
Yeah.
Um, the tight ends that we've had that we now have, we have Noah Fant signed from
Mm-hmm.
Denver. I don't have high hopes for Noah Fant.
Yeah.
I just I think that particular ship has sailed. I think he's just a very limited player right now. Can get you a couple of catches, but basically he's going to be a blocker. Kind of trying to fill what Morrill did. I just feel like Bob and I talk about it all the time. You've got to draft a tight end, and you have to draft one earlier than the seventh round. Um, but if I'm gonna, this is not a good draft class for tight ends. There's no game breakers at tight end, but there's a couple guys out there that I like that maybe you can do something with. Um, that probably gives you more of an upside than some of the undrafted or late round drafted guys they've had. And one of them's the picture of the show tonight, Oscar Delp from Georgia.
Yeah.
I understand he's got shorter arms, but he's a good pass catcher and he's a willing blocker, so he can be used as an inline tight end. Good size, 6'4". I think I'm sorry, 6'5", two. What is it? I just had it a second ago.
Yeah, it's like
6'5",
6'5", 250 pounds.
250. Okay, yeah, 250. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just a guy that really
Yeah.
would fit this offense. I mean, yeah, his skill set right now, he's probably a poor man's Jawan Johnson, but that's his floor. If he can develop into a better blocker, that guy might be what we thought we were getting with uh, uh, Fleener. Somebody who can just run the seam routes. Get open on third down. His arms are a little short, but I don't think that's a hindrance for him at this position because I think we have a quarterback who can put the ball where it needs to be, and he can create separation. So
Yeah.
it's a guy I like. Max Clare comes up every so often. He's just not a very physical blocker. Stowers seems to show up a lot of times in high draft, drafted like in the second and third round. My thing with Stowers is he has no interest in blocking.
Yeah.
He just wants to go out there and
And
catch passes.
yeah. And there's a couple guys I like. I mean,
Okay.
there's Sam Roush from Stanford. There's Nate Borkricher from A&M, solid guy. There's Dalen Bentley from Utah, and there's a fullback that I actually really like, and that's Max Breedson from Michigan.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned fullback. We need a fullback on this team. We just
Yeah,
need some because they tried
that's
using H backs, but
yeah. And here's the thing, I think he does want to use a fullback, but you just got to get the right player.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at these tight ends, what are you looking for specifically in these tight ends?
Blocking. I'm just looking for blocking because, at this rate, this guy's gonna be tight end 3, and if you want him to get active playing time and being used a lot, not just be practice squad fodder, he's got to block. He's got to be able to block, and they use a lot of 11, 12 personnel, and they even audible to being in a 21, 22 personnel at times. I've seen it done it with their seventh round pick from last year, Maliki Matavo and Jack Stahl. So,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to block. That's the main thing.
What about the Ole Miss tight end, Daquan Wright?
I think Wright's okay. I'm not really a big fan of his. I tried watching him. I just thought there's just nothing there. I just feel like he's just depth.
The problem I have with Wright is it's partially the system too. I mean,
Hmm.
he wasn't asked to block that much. I mean, he blocks and he can block for the running
Hmm.
game, but it seemed like he was more of a pass catching tight end, and that's where the inconsistency shows up. Um, I feel like he's a better blocker than a pass catcher. He can catch the ball now. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel
Yeah.
like he's just not. I don't know how to describe it. It's not there. Everything is raw. You kind of have to. If you take a guy like him, you're looking at a guy that you're going to be working with for a couple years and see what he turns into.
Hmm.
And it's not raw in a Jimmy Graham sense. It's raw in a we just I'm going to have to teach you how to play tight end at the NFL level.
Yeah.
You know, so it's hard. But he's got all the athletic skills. I mean, he's a little short, 6'3", but he's 6'3", 250, so he's solid. So,
Hmm.
okay. So I think we've kind of hit on everything, just about every position.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
much.
Next week, Bob will be back. I think, and Bob's starting to put out some of his, he's been out of pocket, but he has put out a few draft prospects. I want to ask Bob who his favorite players are in the draft. And I guess that'd be my last question for you, because I don't think we're going to have you on again until
Yeah.
after the draft's over with. But who are
Hmm.
your favorite players in the draft by position? Just like one or
So,
two names.
yeah, okay. So, quarterback, I love Ty Simpson and Drew Aller. Those are my two guys. Running backs, Jeremiah Love, definitely Jeremiah Love, and Katron Allen, very good inside runner, just that big lower body. Receivers is Elijah Surratt and Chris Brazel from Tennessee. Tight ends, I like Jack Entries and I'm trying to remember his other name. I think it's Sam. Yeah, Sam Roush. I like him.
Sam Roush, yeah.
Yeah, tackle. I like the kid from Miami, and the other tackle I like Francis Moaga and Spencer Fennell from Utah. The guards I do like Vega from Penn State and the Oregon guard. I'm gonna skip center for a little bit. Edge rusher like David Bailey and our Mason Thomas recently because I just love the dude's effort. He always looks to get in a frame to play. D tackle Lee Hunter and Caleb Banks. Um, linebacker linebacker I like Sonny Styles and Jacob Rodriguez. Corner Desario Davis and Colton Hood, and safety Caleb Downs and AJ Halsey.
Yeah. I can't disagree with any of those names. I'm a big
Hmm.
Christian Miller fan, defensive tackle from Georgia. Um, yeah, I'm biased towards SEC schools. Chris Bell is my favorite receiver in the draft. Um, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that he played with Shuck. Um, Running back Nate Singleton, tight end Oscar Delp from Georgia. Um, um, the other receiver I kind of like, we didn't even mention him, but the kid from Georgia. It's a lot of Georgia players I'm looking at, but it's kind of like he's kind of like my fallback option if it all goes to hell and we can't get any of the receivers we like, or we make different picks and we can't grab the guy we want. Um, the where is he? I want to make sure I say his name right. Zachariah Branch from
Yeah,
Georgia. He's
he's in my
5'10".
he's in
So
most of the Saints a
it's
lot
hard
lately.
to take him, but
Hmm.
because he's not an ex receiver, but his speed and game breaking ability, you're kind of replacing essentially you're replacing um uh
Shaheed.
Shaheed, yes, with this kid. Um so I like him a lot, and it's one of the few smaller receivers I like. Because I would feel like if you took Branch, then you're going to have to go and get somebody like a Jeremy Bernard or Jacoby Lane if he falls that far. to kind of back him up because you kind of brought in another speed guy. You know, the cornerbacks I like, all the ones you mentioned. The edge rusher I kind of have a soft spot for is LT Overton. You
Yeah, he
know,
feels more like a Mario Edwards type though, like a tweener.
yeah, I know, I know. And he's not that productive of a player. Um, Interior defensive line, I mentioned that already. Styles is like my guy right now at 8. I've got Sonny
Yeah.
Styles over almost everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Bailey, I would love. Bailey, I'm knocking tables over and running if he's there at 8. I'm not even touching the phone.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, Nate Singleton, the running back, is another one of my favorites. The quarterbacks, I'm not even looking at those this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so linebackers, other than Styles, I really haven't paid close attention to them. It's the interior offensive line, and it's that's the only position I'm really paying close attention to. And the kid from Iowa, you know, is probably my favorite. Jake Slaughter, right behind him from Florida.
Yeah.
You know, that's the guys I kind of like right now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So no, I think more. I'm sorry, I'm looking at some of these questions here. Morrow has not signed with anybody.
He signed with the Texans. He's with the Texans.
Oh, he did. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Caden McDonald was a special. He's special.
Yeah. I think he's going to get taken late first round, though. He's not
I
going to
do
make it
too.
the second round.
I think he might get taken earlier than that. He might get taken in the middle of the first round.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I think I just feel like that's how much in demand those guys are to deal with the running games. My only problem with Bain, the only thing that makes me nervous about Bain is his arms. You know, and I don't want to call him T-Rex arms. That's silly. But I worry that his arms, he's going to have to beat everybody as a stand-up edge rusher and just beat everybody with speed. I feel like if somebody can get their hands on him, they're gonna lock him up. That doesn't mean he's not a good player. It just means that's what you got to be careful of. That somebody can a good offensive tackle or an elite offensive tackle that can match his speed but can get their hands on him. It's gonna be a problem. That's why I like Bailey better than Bain. But Styles is probably my favorite right now. And that's just the mood I'm in. If you ask me on March 31st, 2026, that's who I'm leaning towards. It could change 3 or 4 times after that. Matt, I know you still do Discord stuff late in as we get close to the draft. You do them Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, or whenever you can?
Yeah, Wednesday nights.
Okay, Wednesday night. So what's the name? I know you posted on X or Twitter. What is it usually called? Is it any kind of name to it or anything like that?
Not really. It's just Twitter Space. I just go based on whatever topic I just want to do for that day.
So if you really want to talk a lot of different players in the draft, look for Matt Budrich on Twitter. Look for his spaces. It's usually Wednesday nights around this time, 8:00, 8:30, 9:00, our time.
Yeah, like 8:45.
Okay, Central Time. He'll do one and he'll talk about every player in the world. He and I still got him going old school. You know, I got my magazines. I got Athlon Sports. This is my 20th year of getting this one. Lindy's. I've been having these. I can't believe I've been having these things for 20 years.
Yeah.
Because it's issue 20 right now, volume 20. So 2006, Sean Payton's first year. You better believe I bought one of these things. A couple of the other magazines I used to get don't even exist anymore. Because the first draft magazine I think I bought was in the early 90s. So anyway, thank you guys for sticking with us. Bob will be back next week. We will do more draft talk. Hopefully the Saints do something with Cam Jordan. I don't want this to linger on until after the draft, but I have a feeling, like we talked about, both he and Kamara are kind of in this holding pattern, depending on what happens in the draft. And if they get players to replace them in the draft, they may be going elsewhere. So we'll see what happens on that. In the meantime, we'll see you next week. There's still no Bayou Blitz until Bob comes back. But Bob will be back next week. Have a good Easter, everybody. Yes, Easter Sunday is this Sunday. And then we'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Matt.
No problem.